It's now time for our scripture. And my scripture reading today is John chapter 17, verses 4 through 8 and 13 through 18. I brought glory to you here on earth by completing the work you gave me to do. Now, Father, bring me into the glory we shared before the world began. I have revealed to you the ones you gave me from this world. They were always yours. You gave them to me, and they have kept your word. Now they know that everything I have is a gift from you. For I have passed on to them the message you gave me. I told them many things while I was with them in this world, so they would be filled with my joy, except the one headed for destruction, as the scriptures foretold. I have given them your word, and the world hates them because they do not belong to the world, just as I do not belong to the world. I'm not asking you to take them out of the world, but to keep them safe. They do not belong to this world any more than I do. Make them holy by your truth. Teach them your word, which is truth. Just as you sent me into the world, I am sending them into the world. And that ends the reading of our scripture. Jesus came into this world many years ago to fulfill his life purpose. He completed what he was sent by God to do, revealing to us the path of self and God realization, and teaching us rightful living so that we too may fulfill our life purpose. He fulfilled his purpose. Are we fulfilling ours? In this scripture, Jesus is nearing the end of his life. And he is speaking to God about his time here on earth. He told God he completed the work that God sent him to do. He was a teacher and a healer. And he taught not only through his words, but through his actions. He was a doer. He led by example, teaching us we are all children of God. We are all healers. And through rightful living, we will live a rich and fulfilling life. As we align ourselves with God, we come to realize our own divinity and that this Spirit of God is right within us. When I was a child growing up, my parents took me to church every Sunday, and I went to Sunday school afterwards. But yet, I could not recall reading or studying the Bible in Sunday school. And many years later, as an adult, I discussed this with a friend. And she reminded me that we were not permitted to read the Bible. Only the priest was. As a child, we may require spiritual spoon feeding. But as an adult, we are empowered with personal responsibility. With personal responsibility, we have the freedom to choose our own path. Jesus empowered us. He empowered us, teaching us God is there for everyone, not just a select few, such as priests and spiritual teachers. God is always there for anyone who is willing to listen and learn. All we need to do is seek, and we shall find. Taking personal responsibility for our spiritual growth. Just as Jesus fulfilled his life purpose, so too are we here to do the same. Jesus told God, I have revealed to you the ones you gave me from this world, and they were always yours. And that now his students know that everything he has was a gift from God, and that what he taught us came from God. He acknowledged that even though we are his students, we belong to God, and we will always belong to God. He was a conduit for God to work through, a messenger sent by God to teach us and deliver a message to those who are ready to listen. The message and the lessons have been delivered. Now, what are we going to do with this? A message or a lesson can be delivered. That's only half the equation. The other half is whether it is heard and whether it is received. If someone isn't listening, or if they're not ready to receive the lesson, then they won't. My mother always told me, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. The student needs to be ready and willing to listen before the teacher will appear and before the lesson will be learned. Are you ready for the lesson? Jesus said, I told them many things while I was with them in this world, so that they would be filled with my joy, and I have given them your word. God knew the students were ready for the teacher and knew it was time for the world to receive the lesson. The world was ready to learn that the Spirit of God is right within them. Jesus told God we would be filled with his joy, meaning a deep, profound joy we feel from the very core of our being. And we tap in to our fountain of wealth, the God within us, and the awareness of the God all around us. Spiritual bliss. The lesson was to guide us so that we may realize our own divinity and to experience the same profound inner joy and spiritual bliss as he had. Have you ever experienced something that makes you so happy? You just want to share it with the whole world. Well, that's what Jesus wanted to do. And people were drawn to him. They could feel his light. He was an enlightened soul. He vibrated at a higher frequency. When we align ourselves with God, the light within us emanates the same way. And we raise our vibrations as we raise our consciousness. If you have ever been in the presence of an enlightened teacher or guru, you can feel their light. You can just feel this light emanating from them. Several years ago, we attended a spiritual conference in Scottsdale, and I was immediately drawn to a speaker. The speaker exuded spiritual peace and joy, and you could feel it when you were in her presence. I knew she was an enlightened soul. And I wanted to be like her. And I wanted to experience this same spiritual peace and joy. And she inspired me. She inspired me to climb higher up the ladder and to grow spiritually. I have no doubt she was sent by God as a teacher, as she illustrates one who leads by example. Not only leads by example, but she lives this spiritual truth. And then Jesus said, and the world hates them because they do not belong to the world, just as I do not belong to the world. I'm not asking you to take them out of the world, but to keep them safe. Make them holy by your truth. Teach them your word, which is truth. Just as you sent me into the world, I am sending them into the world. As Jesus' time here was nearing its end, he was passing the baton to his students so that they may pass down God's teaching through the generations to all who are willing to learn and ready to listen. He was sending us out into the world just as he was sent. The one thing he asked was that God keep us safe and teach us the truth. Jesus also said that he was aware that we are not of this world, just as he is not of this world. He was not asking God to take us out of the world, but he was asking God to help us live in this world. And what this is saying is that first and foremost, we are spiritual beings on this earth for a short time. And it is important to remind ourselves of our namesake. We are children of God. We came from God. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. We chose to be here. Yeah, chose. Sometimes I think, what was I thinking? But yes, we chose to be here. to live, to learn, to grow, and to experience life. We're not here for the world to own us. The key is finding our balance of living in the world without being of it. Having a fulfilling physical experience while at the same time maintaining our spiritual bliss. The master teachers, sages, and gurus have mastered this balance, and they have shared several tools to help us live in the divine flow. And you will find what works right for you. Not all things work for everybody. In the teachings of the Kriya Yoga tradition, they practice non-attachment to help them attain self and God realization. And when I learned about this, it was something that resonated with me. The principle of non-attachment is that we are not attached to things in this physical world. We enjoy them, but we're not attached to them. They don't define who we are. Our work provides for shelter, clothing, and food on our table, but it doesn't define who we are. Whatever profession we choose, or I should say, whatever profession we are led to, we are being of service to God and humanity, helping others. We are placed in certain work environments to share our talents and knowledge. For example, we practice Reiki and energy healing. But God also made doctors, nurses, and other practitioners to help us maintain optimal health. Teachers help us gain knowledge. Police keep us safe. Each and every one of us has unique gifts and talents that we share. Be mindful as to how you use these gifts that have been entrusted to you. Is our intent to use them for the highest and greatest good on our spiritual path and to bring us peace and joy? Or perhaps lift up others so that they may find their joy and peace? Or is our intent to abuse the power that has been given to us and do whatever we have to do to get ahead? Because when we do so, we are violating the natural laws. The key is to recognize God as our source and to remember our spiritual progression is most important. To feed our spiritual body and learn and grow while we are here. When we are fulfilled spiritually, our bliss is everlasting. I refer to it as living from the inside out, not from the outside in. When we live from the inside, no one or nothing can take this joy from us unless we allow them. Our spiritual life is the batter of the cake. And the physical things or the life experiences that we enjoy, they're the icing. We may enjoy traveling around the world, or perhaps buying a new outfit or shoes, but our happiness doesn't depend upon these things. They are things, and things will come and things will go. And when we are not attached to them, our happiness isn't dependent upon them. They may bring us momentary joy, but not the everlasting joy we experience with our spiritual bliss. Another way to experience joy is through detaching from the world and attaching ourselves to God, unplugging from the world and plugging into God, unplugging from everything and everybody, and connecting ourselves to the source of God and filling ourselves with this rejuvenating energy. Sometimes we may not realize what we are plugged into and what may be taking our energy. As we did today, and as I do on my Tuesday meditations sometimes, I am led to lead the class through a meditation of an intentionally unplugging from everything but God. Just as we would unplug a cord from the socket in the wall, unplugging ourselves. When you start doing that, you find that you're plugged into more than you realize. Instead of being that 2-pronged socket, we become like a 12-socket power strip. Let's just plug in more. And then, when that's not enough, we take more power strips and plug them into the 12-pronged power strip. Which, by the way, I don't recommend doing because it can cause an electrical overload. And just as it causes an electrical overload in the physical, it can cause an electrical overload in our spiritual. So one by one, as you begin to unplug from whatever it is, you begin to feel your energy being restored. And then connecting to the source, charging your batteries and restoring your soul. I've had a hectic schedule for the last year, and I finally had an opportunity to take a week off, to disconnect from work and home. And it's amazing what a week of unplugging from all those power strips can do for one's soul. It was a reset button. And I reminded myself that I am not of this world. I am a spiritual being. And I found myself shifting my perspective as I practice non-attachment and detachment. Lastly, we may experience our spiritual bliss through surrendering to God and allowing the universe to guide us, setting the intention of being open and receptive to what is for our highest and greatest good. And then being willing to do our part, to get in the boat and start oaring the paddles. It is all well and good to set an intention. And there may be an answer to our prayers right in front of us. But if we don't take action and get in the boat, our prayers may never be answered. Some of you may have heard the story about a person who's stuck on an island. There's this big storm coming. And they prayed to God, God, please save me. And God put a float in front of them. But they didn't get in it. They kept praying to God, God, please save me. And 2 other times, God created situations to rescue them. But they didn't take them. They weren't open to the possibility that God sent these things to them to help them save themselves. God cannot save us if we don't do our part. We are co-creators. We are all here to complete our work on earth. We came from God and we will return to God, just as the master teacher did. And while we are here on this journey, we want to be mindful that we are in the world, but we are not of it. Our spirit is here to learn, grow, and become even more enlightened. God trusted that his teachers, including the master teacher Jesus, would fulfill their mission here on earth, just as God has trusted us to fulfill ours. Many blessings to you as you follow your path to self and God realization. Namaste.